There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Excelente.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Gracias.
All right. So let's just
Gracias a
settle in
ustedes.
and we'll take time. I'm watching the waiting room. So if anybody comes in, I'll add them. Just take a minute to settle into our space and connect soul to soul. Christ Michael, Mother Nebedonia, Macaventa, Manjaransan, Sanja, all celestial beings who are joined with us, we welcome you into this space. We give you our gratitude for your presence here, for your continued support of the endeavors here on our planet, and helping us move forward to the era of light and life. Just thank you again for your presence. Thank you for connecting us soul to soul and with you, heart to heart, in the spirit. Pray that you would be with each person present today and those who could not be with us today, that we can all glean from the message that you have for us in the dialogue that we will have following your message. Blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Guess that means you're ready for Macaventa.
Yes, please, at your leisure.
Good day, my friends. As I am with you present in your group meeting, and we are encircuited with you mind to mind and heart to heart, we look upon the whole planet as a whole as well. The greatest change of all is about to occur on your planet and in your civilization. Heretofore, there has only been one era, the traditional era of humanity as it has occupied this planet, filled it brim to brim, full with people and cultures and societies and nations. And this change is one of consciousness, as we have spoken of, but it also is beginning of an intentional planning of purposeful social change. That sentence in itself would take several years to explain fully to a larger audience. Yet you have a very good beginning to realize with us that you are part of our team, that you are co-creative with us, and that through your efforts, we will, with you, change the traditional era of this planet to the new era of your civilization. This new era is thoughtful. It is very much similar to the team environment that you have here. It is heartfelt, it is genuine, it is sincere, it is authentic, and it's transparent. Yes, you may think, well, Macaventa, you've really got some work cut out for us, don't you? And the truth is, we do. But we are not leaving you alone. As you recall from the last 200,000 years of isolation on this planet, you were left alone. You have no prior experience of working co-creatively with spirit. You have no experience of meeting them firsthand, flesh to spirit, as you sit in your living rooms talking about the events of the day, raising children and families, and so on. Those were actual occasions in the past. Now we must return to that. In that returning, this is what we have called, and you know, as the Great Transition Era. It is the prelude to the days of light and life. It is the prelude to your civilization's new era of peace and tranquility. This transition time now is one which will be fraught with great difficulties. You are experiencing the difficulties of the past civilization, the traditional civilization, with male-dominated aggression against other nations, other peoples, other genders, and so on. This is going to change, has to change. And as Christ Michael has told you, through the Most Highs and through myself, that there are no limits to which we will go to bring this end result about. There are no limits, no restrictions, other than they be peaceful and that they be made with the intelligence of spirit and of the Morantial realm. Your work in this correcting time has been to learn to take on the attributes of the Morantial realm, as though you were living there, as though you had left the mansion worlds, the resurrection halls, and you were engaged in the society at hand in the Morantial realm that you would enter into. This is asking a lot of you as you live in a very violent and unsettled society and world and nation. Your nation and your world is about to become very volatile, even more so than it is now. There seems to be no limits to the aggression that one side may have against the other, and then reciprocal response in turn. This is quite the opposite of how you will live today, as you do live today. You greet each other with peace and love, and you are greeted in return with peace and love. And oftentimes, when you're present with each other, you enjoy a physical hug with each other, where you are heart to heart, where you have the genuineness of each person present, and you sincerely enjoy their presence without hesitation, without thinking of other terms of uncomfortableness in relationships. This total acceptance is what we have for you. And you, by being here, have for us. And through your inner guidance with your thought adjuster, your guardian, and your celestial teachers and midwayers, you too are open to great guidance. You only have to ask, what should I do now? And you'll be told and guided, and the doors will open for you. This is a time of transition where you, the steadfast ones who love us and whom we love in return, have entered into an arrangement of likeness where you can ask for assistance and it will be given to you. We know that the largesse we give to you will not be squandered, but will be heartfelt and invested in yourself, your own personal inner growth, and your relationships with others. Others will in turn be your nemesis, those individuals such as children. They provide you with many, many nuances of growth for yourself. It is not the child who is the cause of the problem, though oftentimes they can be independently. They can be cantankerous and ornery, in fact. And so it is with your lessons are tolerance, patience, forgiveness, and discipline. Good, loving discipline. Loving discipline that is not violent, but is loving and kind and shows the child the way. As you investigate this, you'll find that there are no shortages of references and sources to assist you in using loving discipline with your children. So, too, do we use benevolent discipline with teaching you your new skills? Some of the difficulties you have had in the past, you can look back now and going, that was a lesson, wasn't it? And you reflect on that. And what was the lesson about that you had to overcome? And so as you overcame it, you gained that lesson. And soon you will see other lessons in the past and in the future where you have the wisdom now to overcome that lesson very quickly. And so that lesson then becomes your part of your repertoire of personal wisdom. And when you are able to help others, it becomes the repertoire of wisdom socially, where you can help others who are going through similar problems. Yes, they may stumble and have to experience it experientially, but your wisdom, your sharing, will help them receive insight into what is occurring in their life. Now back to planetary management and the consciousness of the world. What is missing in your world, in your civilization, your societies, your communities, and oftentimes in your families, and very often personally, is the ability to step back from your life, look at what's happening, and wonder, what is the lesson here? What am I to learn that I don't go through this again? Is there something bigger I'm to learn? And yes, there is. To be able to ask questions of a situation you don't have the answers to is beginning to fill in the blanks of wisdom and experience. Remember, you are unable to ask the question unless you know what the subject is about. And so if you are curious about why you have a penchant to do wrong or to be ornery with your friends and neighbors and children and spouse and partners, then that is the beginning of self-examination, to observe yourself. Self-examination, self-observation is the way to inner peace. When you find that you are consistently attacking others repeatedly or in other similar situations socially, you will have a wake-up call. You're going, well, I'm the cause of this problem socially. I need to stop doing that. And that's when you ask your thought adjuster, your guardian and midwayers to assist you to overcome that bad habit. The bad habits of personal behavior are a cause of many incidents which are unresolvable and resolvable. Resolvably, they begin with you. And so you find this same experience nationally and societally, that societies have a penchant for getting into trouble, to offending others. Ethnically, you've seen this so often. Racially, you've seen it so often. Gender-wise, you've seen it almost as a society-wide illness, where those who are not like the mainstream are chastised and belittled and chagrined and criticized openly in many ways. This is less than Christ-like. This is not as Jesus would conduct his affairs in his realm at the time. Even those people who despise him, he treated them fairly. And we ask you to do the same with those who would chastise you, for we are working with those individuals as well. The best you can do in that situation is to pray for them. Ask for their thought adjuster and your thought adjuster to come to terms with assisting that individual to grow into the potential that they have within themselves. I speak of planetary management in these terms, these very broad terms, strategic terms. And you know that we begin with the individual, we begin with the family, we begin with children. And so this is how societies become filled with loving individuals, loving or hateful, spiteful and otherwise. It is our intention here to have directed, purposeful, intentional social change take place. And soon, my friends, you're going to see more than an abundance of social change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Macaventa. Does anyone have questions for Macaventa at this time?
No por los momentos.
Martha, you're muted.
Thank you. I do have a question for Macaventa. Thank you very much, Macaventa. I wanted to know if you think we are ready for what is coming, and if there's any way that we can make ourselves more ready than we already are.
It's Macaventa. Well, dear Martha, are you ready? That's where it comes down to. Are you ready? We know that you are ready. We know that millions of other people are ready as well. And so you are prepared for the social changes that come. You have become flexible, adaptable. You have learned from species that those that adapt are able to survive. Now, how you improve your ability to accept these changes is one, to see that they're coming and that you are not desperate and you're not fearful, but this is just very similar to a personal tragedy, as when your car stops along the road for no reason at all, and you have to figure out how to continue your journey and get home to meet obligations and responsibilities. You know that there are many who are stopped on the highway that do not have a clue as to how to overcome that small challenge. And so it is that there will be millions, if not billions, of individuals in the coming changes who will not have a clue as to how to overcome these challenges. This will be particularly hardest hit. The group that will be particularly hardest hit will be those young individuals who have learned to live life through their video observations and later through their cell phones and through the almost complete disregard for the present moment and their life around them in larger terms. When you find people do not know their own phone number at their home or for their friend, but must rely on automatic dialing, you have an individual who will have great difficulty with the coming changes. We suggest that individuals actually read books, page by page, that talk about adventurism. You know, from was it Robert Stevens, who wrote Treasure Island? Robert Louis Stevens, and many others during those ages, Zane Grey, and so others. As you can see, the historical literary history of this one is limited. And those who wish to adventure further, they can read science fiction books on how to get along with other foreign races and planets and civilizations. The object of such reading and adventuring is to get out of yourself and to project yourself into another situation. What would you do if you were in the woods and your cell phone didn't work and you didn't know how to get back home? How would you survive 3 days in the wilderness? That can be a project, that can be a problem, that can be an example of how to survive when there's nothing that you see available to help you do so. And so you would want to have a knowledge, a background, a history of those situations that would help you find that out. Now, for those individuals who live in these megacities on your planet, they will have great difficulty This is something that comes down to a personal challenge for those people who live in those situations. As for preparing, it is much like camping out in the backyard. It's pitch black, and you wonder when it's going to be light enough to go back in the house and have breakfast. And so you wait, and you look through the tent door, and you look to the east, and soon you see a glimmer of dawn becoming. So just as the dawn becomes the full daylight, so when you see evidence around you that is in distress and chaos, that's a warning that there's maybe more to come. And so, as Jesus had told many people, the same story, but having to do with the afterlife. And so he prepared them for the day when the light would come to them and they would make the transit to the other side, the Rancho realm. So too that you know when there is calamity and chaos and travesties and tragedies around the world, that this is something that should alarm you and you should take appropriate action. You may think it is to stay in your apartment on the 32nd floor. Then that's what you'll do, and so on. Others will have other options available to them. It is one thing to live alone in the wilderness. It's quite another to live in the asphalt jungles that you call cities and to survive week after week after week. Your question stirs a great deal of dis-ease and great contemplation and worry among some people. Your assurance is in that you are protected, you are loved, you are guided. Unfortunately, there are accidents in time. Some people say that there are no accidents at all. You'd have to discern that very closely, my friends, because some accidents are truly accidents in time. Other accidents, we're here to help you learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makiventa.
Juan, please go ahead.
Ok, tengo una pregunta para Makiventa.
Sí.
Desde el punto de vista de la administración planetaria y viendo el estado político en que está envuelto Venezuela, que está bajo un yugo de una feroz tiranía, ¿qué nos aconseja hacer?
What advice do you have for the
Was there a
situation
question?
political? Yes. The question is, what advice do you have from the planetary management's perspective, given the political situation that is filled with tyranny and control?
Dear Juan, this is where one must become many, where each citizen must know what is right and what is wrong, what is ethical and what is immoral. Now, what you are speaking of is political immorality. When people, a mass of people, as in your nation, are dominated by an immoral, tyrannical dictator, then one must become many and know that in the course of their action to overturn that regime, that their actions are moral. This is a level of morality which has not been explored almost completely. It has been ignored by most people around the world. This one and Avila have written a brief paper called Societal Morality for the New Era. And this is an important document to read as you and others begin to gather, organize, and to take action against an immoral regime. What we want to show you and teach you is that individual actions during an uprising, a revolution, some of those are moral and some are immoral. Some people with a negative and hateful and evil inclination will use the opportunity of revolution, of uprising, of rebellion to express their own greed for money, for property, for sex, for possessions, for domination, control, power in their own right. That is immoral. This is not condoned by us. We do not support those individual selfish actions of violence. However, you, in your mindedness of being God-centered, Christ-centered, and with the union of other people who are like-minded, can do great things with your numbers without being immoral to the spectators and bystanders around you. Do you understand this separation and this discernment of societal morality, Juan?
Gracias, Maquiventa.
He asked a question. Juan, te estaba preguntando si tú lo entiendes, la diferencia.
Sí, sí, totalmente, totalmente. La violencia nunca lleva a nada. Pero nosotros, la mayoría, estamos en la espera de una solución diplomática, tomando en cuenta los gobiernos extranjeros y las organizaciones mundiales. Pero estamos en la espera de algo que llegue, algo positivo. No nos hemos rendido todavía y no aplicamos violencia.
This is Macaventa. My friend, amigo Juan, this is Macaventa Melchizedek. Perhaps you may recall the television series called Gunsmoke, where the sheriff was the keeper of law and order in a small town. And occasionally, a stranger, a bandito, would come to the town and pillage the town, burn houses, steal property, money, and so on, and kill people. It was the sheriff's duty at that point then to correct that situation. Now, as you can see, the bandit had hurt people, intentionally hurt people for his own making. The sheriff, on the other hand, would challenge the bandit and shoot him and kill him. That murder was justified for the better good and the greater good of the town. Venezuela is in a similar situation. Yes, we abhor violence and intentional murders. Yet in this transition era, you live in a very violent world where some perpetrators of selfish violence must be removed. We cannot condone such violence on our part. But if you choose to remove those evil individuals who are destroying your nation and the lives of many people, it is one of those offenses which is necessary on a world such as yours. If you were to do nothing, and nothing has many aspects to it, you cannot expect foreign nations to come in and take care of the problem. This is a problem that must be generated, that solutions to this problem must be generated within your nation by citizens who live there, citizens who love each other and who want their leaders to be good leaders for the benefit of all society, millions of people. So when you raise the question about no violence at all, you must discern the difference, my friend. And difference requires good judgment and reasoning thought and unselfishness. Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias, Maquiventa. Gracias,
Thank you,
Daniel.
Maquiventa. Could I ask one more question? Thanks. Did you want to ask another question? One?
Just
¿Tú
one?
querías preguntar
No,
otra?
No, estoy satisfecho con la respuesta.
Thank you. Thank you, Maquiventa. You just spoke about doing nothing, and I wanted to ask you something about doing nothing in another context. Many people are great activists about the situation in Gaza, between Gaza and Israel, and get very angry when one doesn't take sides. And I was just wondering, when one does nothing in a situation of moral outrage, what are we meant to do with all the different levels of violence in the Sudan, Myanmar, Ukraine? Because so many moral people are taking position and showing their outrage daily, and some of us don't. And I was just wondering what the spiritual administration guides us to do when there's so much to be morally outraged about in our society. Thank you.
Maquiventa. In many ways, you ask a profound civilizational question. What is the individual to do in a situation as these? And in your case, in South Africa, with as many social problems as South Africa has itself, the act of doing nothing is the best course. There are individuals who are invested in what?
Sorry, I was clearing my throat.
Hmm. Hmm. In many ways, this is Maquiventa. In many ways, Martha, you were asking us, what are we doing about it? Truly, you are. And it is much as we are doing to assist the situation. What you will find is that such violence, mayhem, murder, travesties, cataclysms, man-made cataclysms are self-resolving. You see, we are not doing nothing ourselves. We are being of influence to those situations and those individuals who will be the heirs to the future. Those individuals who will know better than to start international wars and so on. Ours is a long wait. Yours is a short wait. You realize that you have only so many years left in your life to make a difference. And so this is why we are turning to the family and to children as the best means to thwart the violence of your world. We must change the beginnings of each individual's life so that each child who comes into existence gets to experience the love of their parents, the loving guidance, the loving discipline, the loving care, and the loving oversight of their lives as families, parents, and as the child's friend, mentor to the rest of their life. We have no advice to you, Martha, other than that. You are, in our minds, have done a wonderful job, and you're continuing to do a wonderful job to influence the world by how you raise your son, by how you related to your deceased husband, and has your son observed your relationships as a parental couple. You have done a wonderful job of this. And so what more can you do? I would say take stock in what you've done and assist others to do the same if you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makiventa. I loved the line when you said to be with those who will know better. I just think that's a powerful thing to say, to be with a generation that will be brought up to know better than what we're doing at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Makiventa. Thank you, Daniel. Any other questions for either one?
I just wanted to thank Makiventa. The image he gave of camping outside is such a beautiful one, of waiting for the light before you can go out and have breakfast. Thank you for that. That's very comforting.
Yeah, a lot of appreciation to Makiventa for a lot of things, especially about raising the kids, because I know I'm experiencing a lot of what he's talking about right now.
Senny will be with us next week. He is now moving into his home. New home. They don't have internet connection yet, but he anticipates they will by next week. And he's a friend in Canada. No, Stefan. And Stefan, I guess you know, as the whole family's got COVID. So anyhow.
Yeah, he's also apologized for not being here today. He said he will be here next week.
That'd be sweet to see him again. Wow. I've missed that man.
You've met him, Daniel?
Oh, yes. He came down here and took us out to dinner.
Oh, are you talking about Stefan from Canada or Stefan from Washington State?
Stefan from Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is he joining us again?
I don't know. I was mistaken, I guess, when I heard the name Stefan.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the other Stefan will be joining us.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. That's good too. The my interaction with the guys is such that it's amazing to see them. See, I've been bounced between a pillar and a rock place, pillar and a hard place, for many years, as I have come to work with them in this project, this long-term 40-year plus project I've worked with them. And now to be able to visibly discern, not visibly, but be able to discern how they are responding to international affairs. There was something that I had anticipated would come up a few months ago, and it didn't happen. And so I was disappointed. My expectations were disappointed, as usual, being so immature. And but I had to reflect on that. I had to scratch my head and going, well, what's this about? What's going on? And then the Democratic primary occurred. Well, voila. Kamala Harris was selected by the Democrats to be their presidential candidate. And now that's the reason why they were waiting. Do you see the spirit? The planetary management looks for a watershed to support their efforts. Okay, a watershed helps carry things downhill, and as they have been ordered by Christ Michael in the work that they're doing, to use any and all efforts to be positive and constructive. The spirit, I've spoken with Macaventa about this and Asalaw, is that they have been waiting. Oh gosh, it's anybody like baseball?
I do.
Everybody has been waiting to see a home run. Hey, B, welcome.
Hi.
Good to
And
see you.
Sorry.
Bob.
I didn't
Hello.
know it started at 10:30.
Yeah, we're starting at 8:30 lately.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. So if you're the batter, which would represent the angels and the spiritual enterprise on this planet, you wait for the right pitch and you don't swing until it's the perfect time to engage the ball. And you have the prior experience, as spirit does from other planets, to know what will be of assistance and what will not, to have a home run. And so the batter has the bat ready, gets ready, and swings with all his or her might at the ball at the right inclination of the bat and the ball, and swings mightily so that it goes over the bleachers, out of the park. And so that's what Spirit has been doing, because how would you like to have a boss like Christ Michael who says, I want this right. I want to get this done. I need you to do it for me. And so you'd say, well, Christ Michael's our boss, not these mortals. They understand suffering. So maybe those who need to suffer and wait for the right timing when we get engaged must wait a little longer. And so Spirit has been waiting for that watershed. It's like a sailboat, just like a sailplane is always looking for a thermal, always looking for a tailwind. And so Spirit does the same, and they have been charged with doing this. And so they, in their experience, are looking for the right time, right circumstances, right conditions, and the right elements, meaning people, to be of assistance to them in this huge situation. And, dear people, it must occur when the most advantageous circumstances are available planetarily and civilizationally and nationally and societally for this to occur successfully. Okay? I mean, if you've been a manager, you're looking, scratching your head, as Kona's doing, wondering, what the heck? I mean, this is no.
I wish that was the reason why I was scratching my head, but yeah.
So they're waiting for the election.
Wow.
Okay. They are as dependent for these large planetary scale plans as we are in our life. Now, where are we going to put our efforts? Just as Martha asked, when the circumstances are right. We're going to do it when the circumstances are right and can help us, and when we can help the right outcome. We are helping Spirit by being good parents. And we are waiting not to interfere with Gaza and Israel or any of those elements. That situation, unfortunately, is going to resolve itself, which will change the character of our world. That's my belief. No one's confirmed that on the other side for me, but anyhow, this presidential election is a watershed, and when that occurs, they will know that the wind is behind them on this planet. Conditions are such that they have a far greater chance of success than if the other person gets elected. Yes.
Daniel, I just wanted to say something interesting happened today. We had a meeting with somebody at 3 o'clock yesterday, and she asked me to attend a meeting today. And it was a 2-hour meeting from people around the world because the G20 is coming to South Africa next year. And so it was a meeting of civil society organizations from around the world called the G20, which includes the European Union and the African Union and obviously the G20 countries. So that was interesting. I didn't know that until yesterday, that South Africa will be hosting these 20, most powerful countries and representing the largest population of humanity next year. So I just thought it was interesting that there are these watershed moments.
Well, as we've heard, may the force be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that South Africa could have a powerful influence on the positiveness of what occurs.
Yeah, if they do it right, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what we've always been up against with us mortals. It requires societal largesse, willing to risk.
I was also in a meeting yesterday of the Local Government Association Women's Commission, where there were 300 women councillors from every province in South Africa present, where I was a speaker,
Wow.
amongst others. So there's a lot happening at the same time.
And as long as I've known you, Martha, and known what it was to become of you, that you have been specifically placed. I mean, you are, let me put it the other way. You are specifically placed to do great good. And you are doing what you should be doing. And you are learning what you will need to teach. You have.
Well, we hope so. We hope that we will learn and that, yeah, I guess that we will all collectively learn.
Isn't it humbling to know that you have been chosen?
Well, I don't think there's a person who's more aware of their own failings than I am. So being an Afrikaner, and all of that history, yes.
I can't think of a more blessed person than you to do the work. I'll turn your
Well, thank you.
your statement 180 degrees. Yeah, truly.
No, I agree. Martha, you underestimate yourself and
Hugely.
and are too hard. You take too much of the generational guilt with you.
Yep.
Honey, you've got a heart the size of Texas.
Exactly. Exactly.
I hope Texas won't be voting for Trump.
All right. Well, I'm going to sign off and give you guys space to do your work. Okay.
It was
Great to
lovely
have you with
see
us. Good to
Dan.
see all of you. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you, Daryl.
Thank you
And
so much. We
Bye.
didn't see
Daniel
Cheryl
and Cheryl.
today. Lots of love, Cheryl.
Have a
Bye,
lovely week.
Cheryl. Bye.
Bye.
I can't see Cheryl, but oh well, bye.
I've moved to a different chair, but I'm here.
Oh, okay.
all right.
Bye, Daniel. Oh,
There she is.
Bye-bye. Take care.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, welcome B and welcome Bob. Yes, we moved it to 10:30 because I have class at 12:40 and so I have to be off at 12:30 and I
Okay.
appreciate everybody trying to accommodate me, but with Jock traveling so much, I'm the more natural host given, the challenges that Juan has had with the translation. So we do have a new Zoom account, which is why you received the invitation from me for today. And I'll be sending them out pretty consistently for Fridays, but Juan is still taking the recording. I had to he was host to start the recording, which is why I couldn't let you and Bob in on time. I didn't see you. So Juan, when you're host, you have to watch the waiting room. And we didn't communicate that. We didn't communicate about that before. So I apologize that you had to sit in the waiting room. You and Bob had to sit wait, but that's kind of the circumstances now. And I'm a little froggy today. That
Yeah,
my
how are
my
you
youngest
feeling?
youngest grandson has been coughing and croupy for weeks, and my son came home from Colorado also sick in the bed early this week. And it
Oh,
finally caught up with me about Wednesday with the body aches and all of that, and I was running a temperature
oh,
last night. I wasn't sure I
I,
was gonna make it through today, but I'm like, I have to be there today. I'm the host. There's it's kind of I kind of don't that's the one thing about hosting a meeting is you can't miss it no matter how you feel.
No,
So I'm a
and
little
you're not
that's why I
feeling
keep
good.
turning my mute on is because I'm trying to drink hot tea and soothe my
Mm.
throat, which is kind of scratchy and everything else.
oh,
So yeah, what a powerful message you missed from Macaventa.
hmm,
He literally gave us a warning of the signs of the times. That's how I
hmm,
took it. I don't know how you guys would like to reflect on that. If we would, I think it's important that we take a few minutes to reflect on the message, um, and see how it's sitting and how we're feeling. Personally for me it's very emotional because and I'll try not to get emotional again. Well, I'm going to get emotional because I've known that my calling is kind of like an end times person for decades. I mean, I have been on the edge of my seat in preparation for whatever that apocalyptic world looks like. I've just known that that's my function, is to be here through that process and not knowing, of course, what it's going to happen. And I think I've expressed to you before that one of the key elements, with my son that I'm living with is that I knew he and I had to be together before that happened because he's one of the few people that I trust in an apocalyptic situation because
Mm.
he's trained military and he's smart and
Mm.
he knows survival and he's protective and he's bigger than me. And he and I are, like white on rice. And I'm here.
Just
And
repeat
so
that. Sorry, you are like
we're
what on your,
white on rice.
what does that
We're
mean?
It's like
It's
you
rice
can't
that
separate
comes
white rice.
together?
You can't
Oh,
separate white rice, the white from
okay.
white rice. I mean, you can't separate us.
Okay.
So it's a I
Yeah, I've
guess an
never heard
American
it before.
euphemism.
Thanks. Mm.
And so by being here, that triggered all of my senses and how I got here, which was to walk away from my apartment and leave everything behind me except what I could fit in my car. I've moved almost as many times as I am years old. Spirit has always kept me moving. I have not sat in one place very long, but I have not ever moved like that. I've always like put stuff in storage, get the stuff out of storage, bring it with me at
Mm.
some point. But Spirit was adamant. Just get what you need, prioritize what you need. I couldn't take any books with me. I'm a book hoarder. I love my books. And I've been downsizing my world for almost 10 years, and I downsized to a one bedroom apartment with no storage units, basically had only, what I needed and a few things and books from school, etc. But when I left Atlanta, it was what I needed, including my survival backpack, first aid kit, and essentials for, if we have an apocalyptic situation, what am I going to need? And then I brought the things that I knew that my son would need for his household, because he got custody of his kids pretty quickly, and that's one of the reasons why I'm up here, is to help him. So this message today is very it brings out a lot of emotion in me, because it's in addition to what Macaventa was saying about raising the kids and how to do that, because I struggle with being a strong disciplinarian, but not too strong, so that, the kids have their feelings overly hurt. But I've also consulted Spirit about it a lot. And it's like, we're in a day and age where kids, they need, for safety reasons, they need to be able to respond to the adults that are speaking to them. And they just weren't raised to do that effectively. I mean, they have dealt with a lot of trauma and a lot of neglect, having lived with their mom under some pretty terrible circumstances. So we're making a lot of adjustments here, but I have a lot of grief about my parenting and grandparenting under the circumstances. So I feel like Macaventa just kind of, gave me some insight in his message, in addition to, kind of prepare. So be the messages, prepare, be prepared. We're about to undergo a major transformation. But of course, we've kind of known that.
Did he say the transformation was going to be negative?
Well, we have to have a change in our world for the era of light and life to move forward. It's a change in our transformation on our institutions. But go ahead, Martha, what's your take on it?
No, I was going to say firstly that you can just choose the full transcript and you can copy and paste it if you want to see it as quick, as quickly as possible. But what I loved, well, firstly, he used two images or two metaphors. The one was that you're going on in your car and suddenly your car stops. And, for some people that will be very stressful. And this happened to me a year ago with my son on not an untarred road, one of these in the middle of nowhere. And we were we were going on holiday to see my brother, who lived about 45 or 50 kilometers away, but he came and towed us. And we were probably spending an hour and a half in the middle of nowhere on this untarred road. But I just remember it was a very comforting feeling knowing that somebody would come for us. I guess that, and then he had the other image of sleeping outside, of camping in your own garden and waiting for the light to come up or for the sun to come up, the little tent, so that you can see what time it is for you to go to breakfast. And I thought they were actually quite comforting for those of us who have faith, because it just made us feel like children or like loved people who would be taken care of. And so that was also the message that he said, we will be taken care of, that we need the faith, but there will be bumps in the road, that there are things coming that will be very terrifying for some, but for others it will be that innocuous. I thought that was quite beautiful.
Well, and he was pretty clear about people in cities are going to struggle, and people who rely upon their cell phones for like cell phone numbers are going to struggle. Like, you should have a backup plan for all of your, pertinent phone numbers if your cell phone doesn't work. I mean, what is going to work if the cell phone doesn't work? Nobody has house lines anymore. You need to know. So that was a little bit interesting. And of course he had, words for Juan about Venezuela, which are also very, very challenging, because, they don't advocate, the Celestials don't advocate, we don't advocate murder. But he gave a very clear message that, violence for the sake of peace is a necessary action on a violent world. And
does that have to be does one have to instigate violence, or just be the one that's defending, such as, say, World War II?
right. So it's like, Juan, you can speak to how you interpreted it, but Juan's dealing with a dictator there. And Macaventa was like, it's the people's responsibility to take the dictator out. That's the short version of what I got. And if you have to kill somebody who is doing great harm, then it's not going to be frowned upon by the celestials, because we live in a violent world, and there's things that are going to happen. I mean, my reflection on that is that's how I look at the Israel-Gaza situation, and now the Israel-Hezbollah situation in Lebanon. I mean, unfortunately, they're dealing with terrorists who've been planning their annihilation for decades. And everybody is very against Netanyahu because they want peace. Well, when you're dealing with terrorists who do not intend for you to ever have peace, you have to take violent action against them in order to protect the people that you are given the responsibility to protect. That's my personal opinion. And it was an emotional statement from Macaventa for me, because I struggle with that opinion. We want peace. But when you're dealing with people who do not have a concept of peace, you have to do what's right on behalf of the majority of the people. And sometimes that's violence and war. It's terrible. It's a terrible decision.
Can I offer a different perspective?
Sure.
Or at least my own perspective. So my understanding of the presence of terrorist groups, obviously these are people who are desperate. And well, usually the leader of a terrorist group is cunning and very intelligent and probably has their own agenda. But I do believe that terrorist groups thrive and gain power because of strife, inequality, unhappiness, basically unfairness, maltreatment, perceptions of whatever. Like, so for instance, in places where terrorist groups thrive, I don't believe they would thrive if the conditions of the people were better, right? So for me, the way to, even if a terrorist organization such as Hamas or what's another one,
Hezbollah.
ISIL, Hezbollah, no matter what they say, they don't necessarily represent the opinions of all the people. So many Gazans, for instance, hate Hamas, absolutely hate Hamas, because they understand that Hamas is not helping their situation. So, and they also understand that if an organization like Hamas ever did gain control of Gaza, or at least, let's just put it this way, they understand that Hamas's leadership in Gaza is not helping them personally. And then there are the other ones who are very angry, generational anger, right? But I do think that if somehow the lives of people in distress or oppressed, people who are oppressed, repressed, if somehow their lives were improved and given more equality, more respect, groups like terrorist groups would lose their footing. That's what I believe. They would completely lose their footing. So I do think that terrorist groups, they thrive on anger. In fact, that's their job, is to sow discord, show everybody how unfair or evil the other side is. And these people are very susceptible to these opinions, because to them, yes, it does look like it's terrible, right? And it is unfair. So I think if the world, because I do think the world has some responsibility with these types of situations. If somehow, lives were improved, the conditions in Gaza were improved, if there was an honest, authentic conversation on both sides, which there isn't, I think terrorist groups would lose their footing. But that's just my opinion.
Martha, go ahead, and then I have a comment back.
I just wanted to show you, this morning I was looking up this. because it's something I read it somewhere. It basically says 80%, 85% of Hamas operatives are orphans. And I remember seeing that before. So I guess I absolutely agree with what B said, is that it really is a planetary management thing. You'll have fewer people coming to America if Costa Rica and Ecuador and other countries were more equal, etc. So yeah, I just wanted to agree with that. And so this morning, interestingly enough, I was looking that up. Yes,
I just
Kona?
don't think you can ever get rid of terrorist groups. If we continue down
Yeah.
the path, they're going to crop up from anywhere, because part of the reason there are terrorist groups is because the leaders do actually want power. The true leaders aren't necessarily benevolent. You know, they're just using people who are disgruntled to do their dirty work, right? I mean, these people, that the head of Hamas, Hezbollah, is ISIL, they don't tell their followers what really is happening, right? They just basically, they're like people who go to kids and try to get them to become drug sellers, or try that, you know, they go for the vulnerable, right? So I'm completely not surprised that these terrorist groups are full of vulnerable people, and people who traveled across the world to join ISIL. That was kind of, these are all disgruntled people. Anyway,
Juan,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, Juan?
Kona was going to say
It's
something
okay,
first.
Juan, go ahead.
Kona, una pregunta, ya que eres norteamericana y nosotros, los latinos, siempre a partir de Trump hemos sido un poquito más hacia los republicanos y menos demócratas, como era, que antes sí éramos mucho más demócratas, pero con el gobierno de Biden, de Obama, nuestra opinión hacia los demócratas fue cambiando, porque Obama y Biden eran procomunistas o prosocialistas. Y esa es una de las razones por las cuales nosotros hemos estado sometidos durante 25 años a una tiranía. Ellos no han hecho nada en especial en su política, porque hablan, pero no hacen. Ahora, nosotros, particularmente yo soy pro Trump, pero no sé cuál sería entonces la posición correcta o no desear que ninguno sea el ganador, sería. Por favor.
Can you translate? I don't think all of that was
Yes,
very
he was
clear.
just saying that the Venezolanos have mostly been pro-Trump or Democrats rather, Republicans rather than Democrats. But with Obama and Biden, that changed a little. But they've noticed that Obama and Biden talk a lot, but they didn't do a lot. I just want to explain. I think it's because Venezuela was a socialist country. Am I right, Juan? Es porque
Yes.
Venezuela es un país,
Communist.
a communist country, okay? But
No.
so he's pro-Trump, but he's asking, Juan says he personally is pro-Trump, but he's asking you what the right position is. See? Tengo
It's
razón,
not,
Juan?
it's not Trump.
Yes.
Trump is a sociopath. He is a sociopath.
Yeah, I agree.
He doesn't pay people. He's fraudulent. He is in so many civil suits
Sexual
and
abuser.
sexual
Yeah,
abuse,
right.
misogynist. The Christians, think he's the savior, and he's using the Christians to promote his political agenda. So Trump is not the answer. And my comments are not about politics. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting that Macaventa is waiting to see what, who's going to be elected. It will have very different results on the country depending on who's elected. But my comments were not political as much, and so I'm going to go back to B, and then I'll come back to Juan. B, one of the hardest things that I had to learn, and it was a comment that that my boss's boss made to me when I was 30 years old. He said, Lisa, the problem with you is that you think that people think like you, and they don't. Not everybody has your best interest in mind. So your thinking, B, is from the best intentions with a good heart about why you think terrorists do what they do. You cannot possibly imagine. You cannot possibly imagine the mind of a terrorist because you have no lived experience in their country, in their shoes. You have not experienced the brainwashing or whatever it is that has gone into the heart and mind of a terrorist to become a terrorist. I mean, Iran is backing Hezbollah and Hamas and has been. There is a deep generational hatred between these countries that goes back beyond what you and I can possibly imagine, because we're neither we're not from that part of the world. We don't have the heritage. We don't have the roots that create this animosity between us. So I bless you in your desire to have peace and think that all we need to do is to support the people. But in the meantime, before we get there, the terrorists that are there, regardless of which country they belong to, the ones that are still seeking power and control, have a mindset that we cannot possibly fathom. And it's not about peace. It's about power and control. The only thing that I think that is an advantage in our age right now is that we have had the adjudication, and Lucifer is gone and Satan is gone, and the rebellious celestials have and are being removed, and our mind circuitry is being reworked for the positive and for the good. But how many people are so embedded in that mindset that if they refuse to change, they're going to be eliminated one way or the other? Because the only thing that Christ Michael is going to allow on the planet in this correcting time, and this has been repeated over and over again, is in Manjaransen, and I've seen it from different transmissions and different people, is that you're being given now the time and the time of reckoning to make a decision for good. And if you don't, you're going to die one way or the other. And that's okay in my estimation, because when a person dies, they're simply going to the next stage where they have the opportunity to take a life look at what they've done, where they are, what the celestial realm looks like, and fix the things that they couldn't get right here because they had rebellious influence. And so, when people are on their deathbed or people die, and regardless of the chaos or the tragedy or war, for me, it's okay, because, we're in a very difficult, different time. And part of my emotionality with Macaventa's message is because I get that about what's happening on the planet. And it's a very difficult place to be in, because then I have to have conversations with good-hearted people like you that think the world is going to be resolved in a different way than what I see coming and have seen coming. And it makes me very sad.
Well, I mean, I guess, go ahead, Martha.
No, go B. Sorry, no, go.
I respectfully, I understand what you're saying. I know that, I think I can imagine the type of brainwashing that occurs in terrorists. I just wanted to point out a situation, for instance, what happened in Syria. And nowadays, with these terrorist groups, you know, their objective goes beyond their own lands. Their objective spreads to other countries, typically the United States, because they understand that there are two main axes of power in the world, and one is led by the States and the other one's led by Russia and their subsidiaries. I think that, so let's go to the situation in Syria about the, and I'm talking about the attempt by the Western countries under the States, their attempt to eliminate terrorists by force. And so what happened in Syria was that there was civil war, and one side was Bashir al-Assad or Assad. Anyway, he was the government, so the one in power, and the one supported by Russia and Iran, those axes. And there were a whole bunch of people who were dissatisfied with that rule. And there were many, many, many rebel groups. And you can think of them as almost terrorists because they resort to terrorist measures in order to, i.e. violence, in order to reach their goals, right? Whatever their goals are. So what happened in that situation is actually a lesson in trying to get rid of a bunch of rebels groups. So what actually happened was that the United States decided that they were going to, they actually decide, I think what happened? Well, I don't know, forget the United States. What happened was a group of rebels, like somebody helped some of the rebels in Syria, and they got rid of a whole bunch of rebels, leaving a power vacuum, right? There was no plan in terms of, well, you know, when we get rid of these rebels, they're gone. Who's going to take their place? There was no forethought into that. As a result, ISIL, if you recall, was able to rise very, very quickly. And of course, they have their cooperation with cells, fleeting cooperations with groups in Iraq and Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's the you have to be careful when you try to, even at the very top level of like nations, try to influence a local region, try to take out rebels, try to play the game in terms of, okay, you know, who should we support? If we support you, you know, the risk is that if you don't know what you're doing, you end up with a bigger monster at the end of the day than you started with, right? And I think the situation with trying to get rid of terrorists is very, very difficult because their call sign is, you know, your enemy, my enemy, and your enemy. Wait, how does that go? My
Your
enemy of my
is
enemy is my
enemy.
friend, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's how these terrorist groups operate. Their connections between Al-Qaeda, ISIL, whatever, they're fleeting, and they all depend on, you know, what their current goals are, right? So I think it would be ideal to go in and say, you know what, we can just take out Hamas, and we can take out Hezbollah, and we can take out ISIL. It's not that straightforward, actually. It can result in a mess, as it did in ISIL, and it took them a lot of lives in order to suppress them again.
Martha.
Thank you. I just wanted, I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I have two questions. The one is just if we were angels, how would we see the conflict? because I think it's nice to have an angelic view as well, because if we're all just supposed to grow our souls, it would be nice to see how compassionate they'd be of all of us. And the other one is I recently was in a course on conflict resolution, and it just suddenly something clicked in my head that they say behind every conflict is a grievance. And so obviously the conflict that sent the young men into Israel were the grievances of since 1948 and I don't know, hundreds of years. And obviously the conflicts in South Africa, and everybody who thinks they're justified to use violence, but it's almost just degrees whether we justified to use violence against the dictator in Venezuela. It's just the degrees and the perspective of the people involved. So how do we have an angelic view and say any violence is wrong? And everybody behind every terrorist and every dictator behind them has a child and a partner and parents and whatever who just want to grow their souls.
And so that was my point, exactly what you said, though, Martha, is that not every person has the perspective that they want to grow their souls, right?
Yeah,
That's
true.
our personal naive perspective and our hope and our wish, because that's what we know. We know that we want to grow our souls, and we are here to help the growth of souls of every other being. And as for the angels, they're also here to grow the souls. But we also know that we are required to make one morality choice. It only takes one to connect with our thought adjuster. And if that person in a lifetime of violence never makes a morality choice that demonstrates a universal ethic or moral, they will not ever connect with their thought adjuster in this lifetime. And so what are they perpetuating on the planet? So from the planetary perspective and the angelic perspective, what are they perpetuating on the planet? Is there, and I am a firm believer that the spirit gives every single person on the planet the ultimate number of opportunities to change their life. Every single person on the planet. I don't care if you're a terrorist. I don't care if you're war. So, for B, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about if you are the president of a country, you have the responsibility as an elected official, appointed official to protect your people. That is your human responsibility, your God-appointed responsibility as a leader of a country. So I'm not talking about going into an isolated place as a power country to eliminate terrorists. I'm talking about the responsibility of people like the president of Venezuela, who have the responsibility to protect the people, but he's not. What is he doing instead? He's creating havoc for a majority of the people that don't want him in power. That's a very different thing. I don't believe in, the United States policy of going to places and wiping out who they think, shouldn't be there, just because, we need to create infrastructure for capitalism. I mean, we did that in Afghanistan. And then when we couldn't get the Afghanis in power the way we wanted to, we pulled out, and now it's a disaster. I don't believe in that policy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leaders of countries have the responsibility to be leaders of their country. And when there is no leadership in Lebanon, Hezbollah is the de facto power in Lebanon. There is no leadership. They have a collapsed economy. They're barely surviving. And just like Gaza, and in Gaza, Hamas took power. And the Gazans didn't ever like them having power necessarily because they had no rights. They couldn't speak out against them. They were beaten if they did. They were terrorized if they did. They took all of the money. They took all of the resources. And Hamas lived very wealthy in Gaza. And the average person in Gaza barely had a life, albeit, it was civilized up until the war. So again, there's a mindset behind people who want power that's attached to the rebellious mindset that's been in the planet for 250,000 years, and we're in transition. And that's what Machiavento's message was about today. We're in transition. There's going to be a transition period before we get to the era of light and life, and we just need to be ready. That's all.
I think we've been in
Robert,
transition for a long
right.
time. It's just, sorry, Bob, did you have something to say?
No, that was Martha.
Oh, Martha,
I
sorry.
think he does. You're still muted, Bob.
Hi, I just want to say good morning, but
Good morning, Bob. Good
this
to
is
see you
an
here
interesting
finally.
conversation.
Morning.
Didn't give you
I
a
meant to be on
chance.
earlier. I had signed in about a quarter till 9, and 15 minutes late. I had forgotten our meeting was at 8:30.
That's okay, and we
So I was
apologize.
off for
Yeah.
quite a while, so I just went off and did something else until I noticed that that it was on. So I came on. But anyway, this is an interesting conversation, and I'm finding it very, very informative as well. But also, I kind of agree with Kona about terrorism. The reasons behind it are sometimes things we don't understand ourselves because we haven't been in those sorts of situations. I was in Vietnam and I saw people in some very poor conditions and things. And I learned that not everyone has as much privilege and capacity as a United States citizen, and that we live better here than most places in the world, and that many places they are just getting by, and just to do that is a lot of survival things on their part. And when they are leaving survival lives as opposed to lives of privilege that we have, they make decisions that are different. So I understand that, and I find that it's difficult for some people to realize why people do things they do, and a lot of times it's just survival.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry.
unfortunately, some things happen in the world, like what's happening now between Israel and Gaza. I think it's terrible, but I feel that people in Gaza, in some ways, are responsible for not kicking out Hezbollah before, but I know that some of those terrorist organizations have a lot of power, especially when they're backed by somebody like Iran. And so it makes it difficult for the people involved in Gaza to make right choices. But what's going on there with, as far as civilians go, being bombed and children being killed and things, I think is terrible.
No,
Yeah,
it is absolutely terrible.
and I think part of that too, Bob, I think, a solution that I have constructed in my mind is for Israel to be the ones to help rebuild Gaza for the citizens. That's the only way that there's going to be peace between Israel and Gaza, is
Pretty
for
much.
Israel to go and say, we bombed you. We were trying to get rid of Hamas. We did a lot of damage, and now we want to rebuild. But they have to have some security and who is going to rule there, because they can't. I mean, what they're discovering in Lebanon is more massive tunnels than Hamas ever made in Gaza. I mean, Lebanon, they call it the land of the tunnels. Hundreds of kilometers of tunnels like what was in Gaza. But Lebanon's a much bigger area. And
It is
so,
much
they're
bigger.
they're dealing with things that we have no concept of in our North American peaceful place. And so I try not to be judgmental. I think that it's the responsibility of the leader. And Juan, I wanted to make comment on what you asked before about Obama and Biden and not doing much. I'm not sure what you're expecting from American leaders in your country. My perspective is that the countrymen of the country should do the best that they can to run their own country.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's really hard, because as we've seen, wherever America goes, we create problems. we try to help, but we really, we just create more problems. And I think if Obama and Biden were doing anything for Venezuela, it's to let Venezuelans decide. And this is kind of like what Melchizedek, Macaventa was saying, is that Venezuelans have to step up to what you want collectively for your country. And you have more power than you think. But only the power is in the people of the country. So I'm not sure what you were expecting from Obama and Biden, but that's my little 2 cents worth there. But I think that's true anywhere. We don't need to be a country that goes in, because it's no different than colonization. When we go in to help other countries, it's no different. When we went to Afghanistan, it's colonization. Wherever we go to take over, to help, it's colonization all over again.
It
And
is.
I don't think we need to do that anymore. Go ahead, Juan.
Sí, lo que pasa es que en Venezuela, cuando ganó Chávez hace 25 años, lo primero que hizo fue desarmar a la población totalmente. Y después le dio armas a colectivos civiles que eran de ellos, de sus filas. Ahorita, cualquier persona que dé una opinión de cualquier cosa, ya sea por las redes sociales, por cualquier medio, o en la calle, o lleve su teléfono con un mensaje que reposteó, un policía le puede revisar el teléfono y si ve un mensaje de eso va inmediatamente preso. Los que están armados aquí en Venezuela son los colectivos adeptos al gobierno, que son unos malhechores terroristas, asesinos,
Ujú.
y las Fuerzas Armadas de Venezuela. Las Fuerzas Armadas de Venezuela son mantenidas a partir de dádivas, de miserias que se le dan, y bajo un régimen muy, muy fuerte. Además, asesorados por Cuba. Y Cuba se las sabe todas en lo que es terrorismo. Entonces,
By Cuba, not by Cuba, but by Cuba. Yeah, okay. That was okay.
entonces, en este momento nosotros ganamos elecciones por un 70%. El gobierno no quiere reconocer que perdió, a pesar de que toda la opinión pública internacional está en contra de él. Ellos son terroristas y quieren quedarse en el poder como sea.
Ujú.
No quieren entregar. Hay unos mercenarios que se prestaron por una recompensa, pero imagínate, yo como persona de paz, no, yo lo único que puedo hacer es rezar por Maduro para que cambie su mentalidad y su cuestión. Yo no puedo salir a la calle a protestar porque va en contra de lo que yo pienso. Sí deseo que caigan, que se vayan. Siempre ruego a Dios que entre en su corazón y le dé entendimiento y que se dé cuenta que está haciendo un gran daño al país. Con eso son las armas que yo lucho y también la mayoría de las personas luchan con eso. Nos apegamos a la parte espiritual porque no somos violentos en sí. Fíjate que salimos a una marcha pacífica y el gobierno nos pone las armas, entonces nos agrede y dice que fuimos nosotros que lo agredimos. Y vamos presos también por eso. Entonces estamos de manos atadas y no tenemos otra forma sino de saber más o menos qué cree la parte celestial que debemos hacer, qué sugerencias nos dan. Adelante.
Go ahead,
Thank
Martha. I
you.
have something. Yeah, go ahead, Martha.
Mine's just a quick one with Juan. While I was listening to Daniel, I thought maybe you are the man in Venezuela. And as you just said, that your only weapons are the celestial understanding you have, maybe you should try and use that and make yourself capable of bringing about change through what you know about spirit. Maybe that is how you can topple a government.
Well, we can certainly pray effective prayers. The fervent, effective prayers of the righteous availeth much. And I mean, that's been my ministry for over 30 years. And I think that we should do just that with each time that we're with Juan. We can empower the celestials to do the
Yeah.
will of the people on our behalf because that's what we've asked them to do. Macaventa tells us that all the time. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? They want to know what we want to do. And so we can stand in agreement with Juan
Pray,
to pray for his country. What we cannot advocate is to have another country go in on your behalf, but we can do it with the celestials' help, in my humble opinion.
I agree to that. I understand the situation that the majority of people in Venezuela don't want the government they have, but the government still is in power because it has the power. I mean, in our country, that wouldn't work quite so well because the people are supposed to supposedly is in charge of things. But as we know in our country, even that isn't true because the media and everything we hear is under the control of big corporations and wealthy people. And so most of what we hear is not what is actually happening either. So it's a problem everywhere. And I think people need to stand up and stand for their rights and make sure their voices are heard and make sure that their voices are followed because in the United States, people knew that our media was mostly controlled by wealthy and or corporations. A lot of people do understand that, but many people are just going the way the media leads them because they think it's what's going on. And there's problems everywhere that way. I mean, there's difficulties that the majority of people do not understand really what's going on in the world. And we need celestial help to help broaden people's perspective and mindsets that they can understand that even in countries like the United States, things aren't as they seem.
I'm going to take liberty as facilitator for just a moment because we're at 10 after 12. We have to end promptly at 12:30. Because I have my class at 12:40 and I need lunch in between, which gives me like 10 minutes for lunch. And we haven't done anything on our agenda. We have a vast agenda. This has been a very, for me, I think a pertinent, important conversation because it's definitely on our minds and hearts. I would recommend that we do take time between now and the end to go ahead and pray, and we can each individually pray over the situation that what we think. That's my recommendation. How do you all feel about that?
I take it a step further, and I think we should have a group prayer sometime. Maybe not this meeting, but some other meeting, have group prayer for such things. Because I feel like when a group prays, it's much more effective than when individuals pray.
Okay, how do you guys feel about taking time here between now and the end of this session to pray together collectively?
May I just ask that we just give B a little tiny finish what she was saying so that part is done and then we do the prayer?
Sure.
I all I had to say was I think the world needs to know that the rebellious mindset, they all have the same playbook, whether you call them socialists, communists, fascists,
Americans.
like you have to realize, no, but seriously, there is a power playbook and it's very similar. Like it's used by terrorists, it's used by governments, it's used by dictators. So, like for instance, somebody will say, like Maduro will come and say, oh, I'm communist, which means I am for the people. No, 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 no. What you are saying is that you're trying to convince other people that you want to help them. But in fact, you are just the same as any other dictator has been in the history of Earth and civilization, and are using the exact same tools to keep people in line and keep people powerless. So whether or not you call somebody a fascist, a communist,
Zionist,
they're all,
yeah.
they're monarchists. They all have very similar, and
Mm.
the playbook is basically you in power and the army happy and rich. That is the playbook. Arm
Right,
people that are loyal to you and keep them wealthy and happy so that they will follow what you say. And if you do not have the army behind you, you are powerless. That is like a universal playbook across millennia. It's been used for millennia. Romans, you can go all the way back. That's their playbook. So it's hard to change that playbook because so many people who are intelligent and know how to manipulate people are aware of this playbook and they use it. And they also, part of the playbook is to fool the public into thinking that, what you're doing is for their benefit, when in fact, it's not. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Very astute, very astute.
Yes, and so because they know that that's the playbook and they're using it, it's not going to help us to tell them that what they already know.
However, but the public
So,
needs, no, but the
well,
public needs to know. The public
the
doesn't know. The public
right,
doesn't understand this
you know what the public really cares about, B?
themselves.
Where's my food? Where's
Yep.
my shelter? Where's my
Correct.
clothing? And
That's
who's going to
right.
give it to me?
That's right.
And if the terrorist is going to give it to me, I'm going to support the terrorist.
Correct.
If this government's going to give it to me, so that
Correct.
that is the lower paradigm, and we're
Mhm.
trying to get to the era of light and life. So to
Mhm.
focus on telling the public those things is not going to get us to the era of light and life. Telling the public that they have a connection to the first source and center, however, has the opportunity to change collective consciousness. So
Yes, that's true.
I would suggest that we focus there. Any other comments before we move into a prayer time?
I just agree with what you said, Kona. We have to do it spiritually, and we have to change people's minds in their hearts by aligning with celestial thought. And celestial thought is what's going to save us, not our.
It's not our
Not
intellect.
status,
It's not our warfare.
not status quo, not status quo.
That's true.
Martha, I'm going to ask you to lead us in because you have such a beautiful way of welcoming in the celestials to our space. And then just as each of you are led, if we'll mute and then unmute or raise your hand, I'm going to pay attention when you're ready to pray next, and I'll call you. Okay.
Thank you. Most High God of universes, who indwells our human minds, thought adjuster ours, beloved eternal companion, Michael of Nebadon, our system sovereign, Mother Nebadonia, our celestial mother, Makiventa Melchizedek, our planetary manager, Sonia Melchizedek, all the other Melchizedek teachers, Manjaranson, our magisterial son, whom we are awaiting at this time, those without name and number, angels, guardians, midwayers, all other beings of light who might be present here today. We beseech you today to open our minds to your presence, to your energy signatures, so that we might become aware of the agenda of the divine on our planet at this time and help you unfold it. Indwelling spirit, celestial beings, beings of light, we ask that you support us as we seek to do what is needed in Venezuela for Juan and all the other inhabitants of Venezuela to throw off the oppression that does not allow their souls to grow to their full potential. Please empower those with power to make the changes in Venezuela. Let us bring up a new generation of children who will do better. Beings of light, open our minds to the possibilities that each of us in our individual capacity can do to make the world into a more godlike and God-loving one.
Christ Michael, Mother Nebudonia, Macaventa, Manjuranson, and all celestials who are welcomed into this place and present with us here and now. We just lift up Juan in the situation where he is, and we lift up the country of Venezuela and the people that are in. Just pray that you would quicken the hearts and the spirits of the people who are attempting to establish in their country a government for the people that would represent a new era of light and life and take care of the people. Pray that you would quicken their spirits, strengthen their resolve, provide them the resources that they need, and remove all barriers to them accomplishing your will for them on this planet. We thank you for the adjudication. We thank you that there is no power in the celestials any longer in the celestial realm to assist dictators and tyrants, terrorists, or any other group that would oppress your people. But we're in this process of we're in transition. So I just pray for there to be celestial support for each and every person called to bring about change on behalf of the people, for them to establish a space for and place for living and thriving, that they can have the freedoms that you so desire for them to have, so they can have the freedom to turn towards you and worship and to live freely and to raise children freely. You know the desires of their hearts better than we do. You know those people, all of the people in Venezuela, better than we do. You know what is best for them according to your paradise plan of perfection for them. I just pray over each and every person that you've called to be a light in the darkness. Give them a voice and give them strength to do that which they are called to do, their purpose on the planet. Macaventa, this was a heavy message for all of us today. I appreciate personally that you have given us things to think about, and I pray that you would just give us the time and space, Christ Michael, Mother Nebudonia, to sit with this message today and how it resonates in our hearts and what we can do in response and how we can prepare in response so that we remain centered and grounded in spirit, governed by the spirit of truth in our lives, so that we can remain true to our work in your will and doing what you've called us to do, that we can remain free of political attachments to this world, but be ready to do your will and your work wherever you call us. I just thank you that we have open hearts and minds, that you have given us the strength and will continue to give us the strength and resolve, no matter what we see unfolding in the world, to continue to follow your path, to continue to align ourselves with your will, the will of the first source and center, creator of the universe, of universes. I pray all these things in Jesus' holy name, as Christ Michael on the earth. would like to pray next? Bob, go ahead.
Your celestials appreciate all that you've done for us, and as you continue to help us, particularly in the situation in Venezuela, but also elsewhere, even here in the United States, to help us to learn the truth of things, to help us have a media that is more prevalent to giving us the truth and not giving its own slanted view of things. And this goes everywhere. Wherever there is wealth and power, there are those that try to control what we hear and what we do. We need to realize that we need your assistance in helping us in our endeavors to bring about celestial thoughts out of the people, where they have truth in their lives, where they have peace in their lives, where they have love in their lives. And may those things prevail in all of our lives. May you help it prevail through your guidance and ministrations of the Spirit in our hearts and minds. And may we please turn our minds to seeking the truth and to seeking those things that need to be done that's according to celestial will and God's will. We appreciate those things that are being done on our behalf in the celestial realm. And we ask you to continue these things and further them in many people, that more people will be able to understand and realize celestial help in their lives and bring about peace and love and harmony in their lives and bring in the harmony in the lives of others. Only by doing it one person at a time can we change this world. And we need your help in doing so. Thank you.
Lee, go ahead.
To all entities loyal to the first source and center, our universal Father, all entities in creation and existence, in all time, in all places. Thank you for your service to us, particularly in our local universe, our super universe and our local universe, Christ Michael, Mother Nebudonia, the Melchizedeks, and all other personalities. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for loving us, caring for us, guiding us. Thank you to the First Sources Center for our thought adjusters and their attempts to guide our minds. May the voices of the thought adjusters of this planet, all of them encircuited, empower each other to speak more loudly to their charges so that the charges hear the thoughts of their thought adjuster, whether or not they are focused on it or not. I am asking for some providence that the thought adjusters, without breaking the will of the individual, speak more loudly. And even to those who would ignore their thought adjusters, I pray that those people who are in power are able to hear thoughts of their thought adjuster, even if that bond has not been nurtured. I ask for your providence to enforce it. And I ask, yes, I guess I ask that providence is given to us, and also that the spiritual circuits around Urantia are continually empowered to their maximum, such as so that the spiritual pressure on Urantia is as high as it can be to facilitate, to guide our wills and our thoughts, even though we have free will. I ask our guides, all our guardians, to be there. In fact, I ask the higher powers to empower our guardians, midwayers, angels, other bright spirits, to help us in our lives, to bring us together with people that we can help and who can help us. Arrange those serendipities that result in the growth of our souls. And please do this for every individual. Allow us, speak to us loudly, your will. Of course, without abrogating the free will of each individual. But if we can hear the thoughts of the divine plan, then we might have a chance to actually see the truth. Finally, I pray that those who look after us help us, each of us, every single individual on this planet, to discern the truth that is around them and discern what is important in their lives in the context of the lives of others, not just themselves. I pray that we are taught to think from a larger perspective and to see the larger perspective. Amen.
Thank you. I would just add, Celestials, that all that is asked to be done to align with the will of the First Source and Center. Juan, did you want to add prayer? Because we're close to being at the
Yes.
end. Okay.
Amado Padre, no solamente te pido por Venezuela, te pido por todos esos pueblos alrededor del mundo que están sometidos a tiranía, a hambre, a desolación, en guerra. Pido que la oscuridad se vaya retirando paulatinamente del planeta, de acuerdo a tu voluntad. Amén.
Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you all so much for this wonderful session. Juan, I would like to make you host so that you can secure the recording and transcript.
Okay.
And then I need to leave, but you guys are welcome to stay. Second. Yeah, Juan.
Kona, para los archivos, los videos, yo creo que tú sí tienes que enviar el link, el enlace para
you'll have to
poderlo bajar.
save him. Did you record on your computer or not?
No, Juan started the recording.
No. Ok, ahorita sí, termino la grabación, Kona.
She
Say it
didn't
one
do
more
any recording. Sorry, she didn't record, Juan. ¿Tú no grabaste?
Sí, sí. Sí, yo
Let
la
me see.
puedo, sí la puedo detener, la grabación,
Okay.
Let me
pero me
see.
dicen
Let me.
cuándo la detengo.
You can do it
I
right
can-
now.
Who, me or him?
Him. He said
Okay,
he'll
let-
stop it.
Okay, hang on. Let me
No, ya,
make him back to the
no,
host. I'm making him
ya no
back to the
soy.
host. Make sure he can stop it.